Right now on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network, we are thrilled to be joined by NFL Network and Good Morning Football's Kyle Brandt. Kyle, I feel like this AP Good Morning Football thing was a long time coming.
Yes, ironically, Pete, it gives me a great sense of pride to be here talking to you. I'm sorry that I can't be Peter Schrager and break out pom-poms and nipple tassels and jump around from Mahomes every 5 seconds. I'm sorry that I'm not in the Avengers. I'm not Ant-Man. I don't have that kind of clout as far as a Chiefs enthusiast, but I'm a big fan of yours and of Arrowhead Pride, and thrilled to be here. Let's talk some Chiefs, man. What do you got for me today?
Yeah, really pumped that you're able to join us. We appreciate all the love at Arrowhead Pride when you guys mention us both on
Sure.
camera and on social media. And what prompted us getting together today was a new project, a side project that you got going on called 10 Questions with Kyle Brandt. Did a great interview with Tyrann Mathieu. I do want to get to that in just a second. But before we do, can you just tell our fans what you're doing, what this thing's about, what you're going after with this new Ringer project?
Okay, so thank you for asking. Let me be the latest to scream from the mountaintops. Hey, everybody, check out my new podcast. Have you heard that from everyone in your life, your aunts and uncles and nieces
Yes.
and neighbors? Here's the deal. Let me try to cut through that. I was not just going to come out and say, hey, I've got another podcast or a football podcast or something. I wasn't going to do it unless it was truly different. So what I created, it's almost like a game show and a talk show where it's called 10 Questions, and every guest that comes on, we've had so far Aaron Rodgers, Tyrann Mathieu, Paul Rudd, actually, and Kirk Cousins. They get 10 trivia questions that are sort of strange, tangential. It could be anything. It could be about sports, movies, science, anything. And they have to answer it. If they get it right, they get a point. And then afterwards, we reveal, why are you asking me this? What does this have to do with me? For example, when Aaron Rodgers came on, I asked him, I said, what is this movie clip I'm about to play you? He listens to it, and it was from the movie Backdraft. It's a fireman movie with Robert De Niro and Kurt Russell from back in the day, and he got it right, so he gets the point. But then I say, all right, why am I asking you about Backdraft? Aaron, let's go back to the draft. It was a strange one for the Packers, and then we get into the draft. Or if I ask him about what's the proper term for the baby goat, in which he didn't know, which is kid, and then we get into goat talk. Are you the goat? Are you the goat? Is Brady the goat? So that's how it works. It's a game, and then everybody leaves, and they have a score. They got a 6 out of 10, they got a 2 out of 10, they got a 10 out of 10, and they compete against each other. So it's kind of a sport, kind of a game, and we talk, and it's pretty fun, man, and it's different.
The great thing I think about what you bring to the table at NFL Network is you're making football fun again, in a sense. And I know that this type of idea lends to probably having a lot of fun with your subjects, get some really fun stories that you wouldn't otherwise get. But what I learned from your interview with Mathieu is you can touch upon some of the more serious parts of his life. I have a clip right here I'm going to play real quickly for the audience of just a portion of it where you were talking about some of his struggles at LSU.
Tyrann, was it Les Miles who gave you the news that you would no longer be part of the team? And exactly how did he phrase it?
I mean, he was damn near crying. Like it was so hard for him to do that. I mean, because he knew me, like he knew who I was and he knew what my heart was. But obviously, I feel like me and Coach Miles still have a great relationship to this day. I always remind him, that him and my grandmother really probably made the two best decisions, for me in my life. My grandmother, my grandfather passed away. She decided to move me to the other side of town with my uncle and my aunt. That's how I got into sports.
Yeah.
And with Coach Miles, him kicking me out of school really put me back on my feet. I had to rely on Tyrann. I couldn't rely on the Honey Badger. And so I fell in love with Tyrann again. So I probably say those two experiences with my grandmother and Coach Miles, a lot of people say I made the best decisions, but I think those two people really made the best ones for me.
So right there, what I like about that is it's long form. And sometimes you can only get those type of answers in long form. Like we love in Kansas City hearing from the Honey Badger, but you got to spend 63 minutes with this guy. Going in, what did you think of him? And then when you left this interview, how did you feel about Tyrann Mathieu?
I probably like a lot of people. You think the Honey Badger, and he's a good player, and he's cool to watch, and you remember him in college, and you remember he got in a lot of trouble, and now he's turned his career around, and he's a good player, and he's a world champion. But that's just so on the surface. And listen, I love to sit around and talk pop culture and movies and TV and stuff. I do. And we did talk about everything from Vin Diesel to Burnt Ends to all kinds of saying Michael Jackson together. But with Tyrann Mathieu, like, there are so many different layers. Like, you have to go really deep. He has been through unbelievable, unspeakable violence and terrible, heavy childhood history, just unbelievable things. So you can't just jerk around with him. And the clip that you just played right there was part of what I wanted to get into. Like, the fact that he sits there and says, me being kicked out of LSU was one of the two greatest moments of my life, two greatest decisions ever made for me. That moment for a lot of people would break them. It'd be humiliation. They would fall into despair and depression. It made him. And that kind of answer from Tyrann is so incredible. He goes into this dichotomy that he had that I thought was so fascinating, where he, in college, at the height of his fame, he really believed that he was the honey badger. Not Tyrann Mathieu ceased to exist. He bought into, you're a superhero. You can do everything. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. No one can stop you. And he totally bought it. And he gets into this idea that I kind of forgot who Tyrann Mathieu was. I was the honey badger. It's like a superhero who, Peter Parker just believes that he's Spider-Man, and he forgets about the kid who he really is. Right. It felt a lot like a childhood star, like Macaulay Culkin or Lindsay Lohan or one of these who's just way too much fame when they're not ready for it, and then the drugs come and the vices, and I mean, he did not hold anything back, and it's miraculous that he's standing there on the podium with a Lombardi trophy and a Super Bowl champ and a big contract and respect, because his journey was wild, and we got into a lot of it.
Yeah, and I think we've seen it even at the pro level with him, where he's had two teams that he's gone to. He ended up with the Chiefs. He had a 4-year gap between all pros where he suddenly, I don't know if you sensed that too at the national level, but he suddenly found it in him to turn back to elite last year. And I feel, and maybe you gathered this from your interview with him too, I feel like he feels like he found a home in Kansas City.
He loves the home. He loves the coaching staff there. I feel like it was a match. It feels like someone who was married and then had a divorce and just dated around for a while. He dated the Houston Texans.
Right.
He had a terrible falling out with the Texans. And then he found the Chiefs, and it's like everything works, and the staff loves me, and I love my safeties coach, and I love my coordinator. Because once a guy goes all pro, you don't take a 4-year break for all pro. Like the new kids come in, and there's fresh new talent, and there's Derwin James and Jamal Adams, and there's these greats. It doesn't really happen like that, not at safety. So I think when you guys, and when I say you guys, of course, I mean the Chiefs got Tyrann Mathieu, it was kind of cool, but like with some hesitation. I feel like we're getting damaged goods a little bit here, or maybe his best football is behind him. And then first team all pro, indispensable piece of the first Super Bowl team in about 5,000 years for you guys.
And he just lifts. And the amazing thing here, Kyle, too, is like he just lifts other players. Like I make this comparison all the time with Mathieu. If you were on Madden, it almost is like a soup up on Madden where Charvarius Ward goes from a 78 to an 82 because of this guy. And it's really cool that you were able to hit on so many points with him. I want to transition a little bit to Good Morning Football, and you kind of alluded to it toward the beginning of our sit-down right here, but do you, Kay, and Nate poke fun at Peter for how much he stands the Chiefs? Because it comes through to us on television.
100%. Yeah. We do at any chance. And listen, we look for any opening we can get about anything. I mean, it could be Peter's sweaters or Peter's hair. It could be anything.
He's got quite a flow going on recently.
Oh my God, it does. Yeah. Yes. I mean, that's the quarantine flow. And he had it before the quarantine. So we're always looking to make fun of him, but it's, in a way, it's hard because let's just say this for the record. In the summer of 2018, Peter Schrager went on national television and said, listen, world, is this thing on? Patrick Mahomes is going to be the next big thing. And we're like, shut up, Peter. Crazy dude from Texas Tech with the strange hair and the weirder voice. I mean, come on. He's like, no. I mean, you can look up the segments. They're out there. He said, I think this guy has the strongest arm in the league and could be the MVP of the league this year. Now, granted, this is after he sat behind Alex Smith, and he was nothing. He was, maybe this guy will be interesting. I can't believe the Chiefs went up and got him. I'm telling you, he was the #1 guy to get in there early. It's like he invested in Yahoo in 1997 And then 6 years later, he's like, which Bentley should I drive today? He was on the ground floor of Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the only people in earlier, were Reed and Dorsey and Veach and that crew. But right after them, Peter Schrager. So we bust his balls all the time for being a Chiefs fan. He's like, look, what are you going to make fun of me for winning and gambling? I won. I got a stack of chips right here. I'm getting comped in the highest suite in the building.
There's a reason that we call him the Arrowhead Pride lobbyist on Good Morning.
He's a good one.
We talk about Peter. I do want to talk about a prediction you made. I have a second sound for you. I just want to play. And this was quite a prediction.
The Chicago Bears are going to win the Super Bowl next year. This year, the Kansas City Chiefs. I got this vision. I can't get it out of my head of Patrick Mahomes on a bus, on a Super Bowl float, just throwing beers to the crowd, going blocks and blocks, throwing them all the way out of the state.
No look ones.
And then the parade finally ends, and he sits down and signs a contract for about $500,000. Patrick Mahomes' league. The Bears will have their time 1 year from now, but it is this guy, the MVP, the Super Bowl winner.
Let's just forget everything Bears there. That was like Kyle Stradamus with the beers and the $500,000. What prompted you to make that prediction?
I'm just sitting here listening to it, and I'm like, idiot, shut up about the Bears. Just stop talking about the Bears. You're ruining the whole thing. It's a Mozart symphony, and some a-hole with a guitar is on the side making noise and distracting from the beautiful instruments. You got to understand the context of that. We were in Chicago doing the show live in front of Buckingham Fountain, which, if nobody knows, is the fountain from Married with Children. I'm wearing that whole show. I wore a Jim McMahon jersey, and I had the sunglasses and the headband. I'm from Chicago. And so I couldn't help but throw Chicago some love. And they were playing that night against the Packers. So I wish I could shut up about that. But that show where we do Super Bowl predictions is one of the most nerve-wracking shows every single year. And I felt, I was just going to do the Bears because we were there. But the Chiefs, I don't know. Honestly, my serious answer about it is I think the Chiefs weren't in the Super Bowl the year before because of a coin toss. I really felt that way. If they win the coin toss, they're not stopping them. And I don't think the Rams were beating the Chiefs either. I think the Chiefs were going to win last year. So if I'm sitting here going to a new season and Mahomes has 1 year as a starter, and the only thing that stopped him in that playoff game was tails never fails, I'm like, they're going to win the Super Bowl again. Screw Brady, screw everybody. And so I just felt really strongly about it. And then the beers was just me being stupid. And then the $500 billion felt so over the top at the time. I'm like, I don't really mean it's going to be $500 billion. Maybe it's a $200 million deal. That would really blow everybody's hair back. No, it was $500 million. That one was just dumb luck, dude.
What was amazing too, though, was Mahomes pouring beer into Travis Kelce's mouth and just how outrageous it got. And it was just almost like you described word for word. Exactly.
Isn't that crazy? And then GMFB tweeted that 6 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And Mahomes retweeted it and said, this is honestly crazy, though. And he said my name and everything. And normally I wouldn't ooh and ah about an athlete saying my name just because I get to work with them. But I've never had any connection with Mahomes. If anything, I've been an antagonist of the Chiefs or him. So I was really surprised that he did it. But then again, Pete, like you said, there's some pretty impressive details I stuck the landing on there. So thanks, Pat.
Yeah, of course. So as we've talked about a little bit here, I cover the league from a Chiefs perspective. Right now, it is the easiest job in the world. They're just so good in every facet. Run defense, okay. If you want to really pick and choose, maybe that is something you could complain about. So it's easy. You have a tough job, right? You are covering 32 teams. I feel like anything you say on that morning program, you're hurting somebody's feelings. Just how hard is it to make sure that you're sort of, taking care of 32 pieces of the pie equally and managing those expectations with so many people around the country watching you?
That's a really good question. And the short answer is I don't try very hard, and I have the luxury of being an agent of chaos where I don't have to make nice with the Steelers unless I want to. I don't have to speak well about the 49ers unless I feel it. And a lot of times I'm not positive on teams because, listen, if you say every team in the world is great, then everyone's perfect and every coach is amazing. A, it's boring. B, you're full of crap. C, you're just kissing ass. It's just everything I don't like about TV. You have to have some authenticity. Look, if you're constantly ripping everyone, that's a different type of show, and I don't like that either. But honestly, it's so tedious to just be like, yeah, this is going to be great. This new quarterback they drafted is going to be awesome. I love this new coach. You know, it's going on right now with Joe Judge and the Giants, who are right here in our backyard, who if anybody we should be an apologist for or rooting for, it should be them. And like every single day, it's fish in a barrel just making Joe Judge jokes right now because it's funny. Yeah. So I'm not swerving outside my lane to do it. But, you know, it's the Chiefs thing is particular to this too, because as you know, like I love Mahomes and everybody's coming up daisies for the Chiefs now. But a few years back, like I would totally pot shot the Chiefs because I felt like they'd earned it because they just year after year they would blow it in the playoffs. And my take was basically like, look, they have nice players and a good team. You and I both know they're going to finish, I don't know, maybe 10-6, and then they're going to lose in the playoffs. And then they would. And I wouldn't take pleasure in it. I wouldn't relish it. But I'm like, why would I say that they're the Chiefs? They're always going to be the Chiefs.
It got like Groundhog Day-ish for a little while there.
And then they drafted Patrick Mahomes. And now it's Groundhog Day-ish, and you're reliving the best day of your life over and over and over. And it's incredible. And what a warm blanket that must be for you, Pete, for you and your legions of fans. And I mean, like, just to know whatever happens, never mind anything else, we got Mahomes, and we got him forever. It must be such an amazing little jacuzzi to slip into.
It's hysteria in Kansas City right now. That's the best way to describe it, just because it's just such a football town, and they had a little bit of flirtation with the Royals when they were going on that run for a couple of years, but it's always been a football town, and people have been waiting for this for forever. I mean, they hadn't drafted a quarterback in the first round since the 80s, 50 years. I mean, you went through it last year covering the Super Bowl every day in Miami. So a long time coming, and people are just loving it here. And it's great. And we get to watch a lot of Chiefs coverage on Good Morning Football, which we appreciate. And speaking of that, this is my final question to you.
Yeah.
I know that everyone around the NFL looks at the Chiefs and they say, okay, this is the Super Bowl winning team, right? That's easy. What's the perception, you think, of this particular Super Bowl winning team? I don't find, and this is just coming from Kansas City, I don't know if they're the villains yet, but I think that could change quickly if this winning, as we're saying, continues.
It's a really rare thing, not only, quote unquote, these days, but this year, in which there's almost nothing but positivity and respect for the Kansas City Chiefs. There's just none of that. I mean, everybody hates everything now, and everyone, and everything sucks, and everyone's the worst person of all time. And yet, man, Patrick Mahomes, he seems like a great guy. And Andy Reid, what a great story. The Chiefs, what a great franchise. There's almost no disdain. It's not tainted by, now, don't get me wrong, it will get there. Keep winning and everyone will hate you. But right now it's like, because it's not just that Mahomes is a great player and throws no-look passes and stuff. It's like he has this 100% approval rating as a human being.
Right.
That everyone raves about him. And I've said this before, that he's kind of the perfect superstar for this generation in that he's a little different. He looks a little different. He's got different hair. He throws a little different. He sounds a little different. This is a guy who was raised in pro sports, who has a mixed race background, who appeals to a million different people of different demos and different backgrounds and different ethnicities even. And, you know, he signs $500 million. He's like, yeah, whatever. I'm like back in the gym. It just, it's like he seems these Teflon football Jesus that can make every throw and get every approval vote. It's really incredible. So that's my long answer. The short answer is just like, how the hell are we going to beat these guys for the next 15 years? You know, that would be my one bone to pick with the Chiefs. It's not their own doing, but you look at the media and they start saying, well, let's see, next 12 years with Mahomes, you know, on the low side, that should be at least 5 or 6 Super Bowl appearances. Maybe he cashes in 4 of them. Let me tell you something. It's so hard. And I will point to Exhibit A being about a decade plus a little bit. I saw Aaron Rodgers standing on a podium getting showered with confetti, and he looked like the greatest person ever played the position ever. I mean, no one was going to stop this guy. And every media person, to a man or a woman, said, there's your next decade of Super Bowls. Start lining up rings for Aaron Rodgers. Dude hasn't even been to one in a decade. So I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, and Mahomes is amazing, and you got the cereal box over your right shoulder, and everything looks great up there. And I do think they'll get to – but, like, don't start thinking, like, we're going to have a parade every year. It is hard, man.
No doubt about it. Well, that is Kyle Brandt. You can catch him every morning during the weekdays on Good Morning Football and NFL Network. And more importantly, for the purpose of this podcast, right, go to Spotify and make sure you follow 10 Questions with Kyle Brandt and check out the 63-minute, really, really good interview with Chief Safety Tyrann Mathieu. Kyle, we appreciate the time, man. Love
to be here. Love to talk Chiefs with you. There's people listening who are like, oh, Spotify, I don't do Spot. Listen, if that's your thing and you feel very strongly about that, it's all on YouTube. It's all on video. Just YouTube, Another Kyle Brandt, Tyrann Mathieu. It's all on video. Pete Sweeney, you are a great dude. I love Arrowhead Pride. It's a really well-run site. Media hotbed now as when you have a world champion. I will not rest until we get Pete banging that big drum down on the field at Arrowhead. You deserve to do it, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. And again, we really appreciate the time.